Hey there, it's Andre here with another interview with the Impulsive Thinker podcast for the high achieving ADHD entrepreneur. Today's episode is brought to you by CADAC, the Center of Awareness Canada. You can get more information on their website on www.cadac.ca. Today, I have a special guest. Yes, I've said that before in the past, but this is another very special guest, Teresa Easler from Connect to the Core. She is also my longtime coach of mine at Strategic Coach. Hi, Teresa.
Hey, Andre.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm so happy to be here with you to talk about this today.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time because if I recall correctly, you've got exposure to ADHD. You don't have ADHD yourself, but you have exposure to ADHD. Can you just share that with us briefly?
Yeah, well, my oldest son was diagnosed at 3 years old, and we knew something was off because
Mhm.
he wasn't like all of the other 3-year-olds out there, and so we didn't know what was going on, and so we took him to all sorts of specialists and said, "This kid is ADHD and is not a borderline case." So we raised him from knowing that from a very young age. So yeah, I'm very familiar with it.
Well, that's spectacular. Lucky for him that you went and got that diagnosis and support. Um, what you are known for, excuse me, wow, what you are known for is you're the communication expert.
That's
Um,
true.
you agree to that, and you
Yeah,
own it.
I'll agree to that
Yeah,
one.
you own it. And I took one of your courses, the Encore
The
presentation
encore.
course,
Yeah.
and I did a short episode based on what I learned from that. And the other thing I like to do on this podcast is to also help the entrepreneur grow as an entrepreneur and to help their business at the same
Yes.
time as understand their ADHD and their self. So, what are the key fundamental aspects of effective communication for an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it's not only for entrepreneurs, it's for all of us, whether it's in our lives as entrepreneurs and as business people, or it's in our personal lives, or where whatever aspect of it. and
Yeah.
and that is, if I the key fundamentals in any kind of communication is to remember that it's not about you. And
That
that's
was a big insight for me too. That was monstrous. And do you want to elaborate on that a little more? What do you mean it's not
Yeah,
about
yeah.
me?
Well, and it seems very counterintuitive because if you're communicating, it feels and it feels like you should be the center of attention, except that if you keep yourself as the center of attention, you're really missing the opportunity to get the results, getting the outcomes that you want. And how you get the outcomes you want is to actually see things from the other's perspective. What is it that they want to accomplish? How do you guide them or contribute, or what you have to say? How does it help them have what they want? And when you reframe things in that way and not have it be about I, what you're going to find out is that you actually will get the results that you want, and your communication will be far more effective.
Yeah, and I would that make sense to me? Like I know for the longest time I would make presentations, salesy presentations, and I had a lot of great feedback about the content of what it was, but I never got a conversion at the end.
Right.
And one thing I realized based on your course, which I don't think I talked about this, but I think I went from you, them to me at the end.
Yes.
Does that make sense
Yeah,
about
yeah,
losing
yeah, yeah.
ego?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and at that point is particularly when at that point where it's your call to action or whatever the ask is or the recommendation or and whatever that is, at the completion of your communication, oftentimes it does revert back to, me. And I think what I've noticed is at that point in any kind of communication or presentation is when people get really nervous and they stumble a lot and they don't know what to say, and everything can be beautiful up to that point, and that's when it falls apart. And I think the reason that it falls apart is because it is, one, it's not thought through clearly, but the other thing is that it is all about you, and why should somebody even care about that? And it doesn't address what the other person's needs are or what their wants are.
Okay, so what I'm also hearing is we reach people a lot more effectively if we talk about their needs or their situation or their whatever,
Yeah, their desires,
their desires.
what
Yeah.
they want, what they want. And that's really, that's the key. To me, the great communication happens because you have a connection with someone else or several someones. And when you have that connection, the connection happens because you are their partner in supporting them and having what they want in their lives. And this is true whether it's in your business, whether you are out there talking to your clients, or you're trying to convince your kids to certain kinds of behaviors. It's the same thing. And what you have to constantly presence is what it is, to the best of your understanding, what it is that they want and how you are going to support them in achieving that. And sometimes it doesn't look the way they want it to look. Sometimes it's not going to look like support.
Right.
But nonetheless, when that's where you're coming from, when that's where your communication begins, then the outcomes change too.
Okay, you use the word connection. Okay,
Yes.
so as a speaker, I'm in front of a group of people and I got to connect with them.
Yes.
My experience, and I think what a lot of listeners experience with too, is the only experience or exposure of connection is actually a one-on-one conversation when the other person's involved.
Right.
So how can I connect to a crowd that's not interacting with you?
Well, crowds are always interacting with you. That's one thing.
How?
Is they might not be verbally
Ah,
interacting with you, but they are interacting with you. So it's a reciprocity. When you are, if, for example, if you're on a stage and you've got an audience of 200, 2,000 people, they're interacting with you very strongly. And you have to pay attention. You have to take the attention off of yourself and put your attention on them to recognize what the interaction is. So the interaction, like I said, may not be a verbal interaction, but you're going to see, if you are paying attention, if you're watching, there is all sorts of there will be physical cues. Their body language is interacting with them energetically. They're interacting with you. They're responding to what it is that you're saying. So there is a reciprocity. There's communication taking place. They may just not have the speaking part. You may be the only one with the speaking part.
right. So wow, because with the ADHD mind and brain, we have a hard time interpreting body language. If we
Yeah.
are, like in the case of a presentation, it is kind of, yeah, we're a center of attention. It is about, in a way we kind of say, hey, the focus on me so I can remember everything that I'm doing. And when you
Right.
lose focus, or
Yes.
we don't lose focus, we lose the ability to also pay attention to other people's body language. So that's why we're accused of being self-centered. It's always about us and not paying attention to, like, after rambling on for 20 minutes, you haven't picked up the social cues to stop, right? So that'd be a good challenge, just a challenge for the ADHD, or to be able to pay attention to that. But I think you also said energy, the room energy. And I know
Yes.
we have an ability to absorb and be more attentive to energy. I know for me, I'm more receptive to energy. So watching the body language, the responsiveness from the crowd would also include oohs, ahs, or laughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And the energy. So I think those are big things. Is the connection with a crowd that you can't do I think that was a great word, a verbal interaction. is
Yeah.
also a part of it, not only.
That's exactly. And see, one of the things with its, and I think you bring something up that's important is one on one. It may be easier, but one of the things when you've got more people understand, it's still a conversation. It's still, there's no difference. It's a conversation. Your interaction is still the conversation. And again, they may not have a speaking part in the conversation, but they're in a conversation with you.
Okay, well, I've never heard that described to me in any way. If you did in your course, I apologize. I might have mental lapse there, but I think you're one of the first person, well, I've ever heard, probably one of the few that ever says it's a conversation.
Yeah.
To me, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
That makes it less nerve wracking, and more
Exactly.
interactive if it's a conversation.
Exactly. And the other thing about it is it allows you to be yourself. And
Well,
that I think is the most important thing. Because when you're having a conversation with your neighbor over the fence,
right,
you're not worrying about any of that stuff. Well, it's another kind of conversation. It's a structured conversation
right.
and it's a conversation.
And I think that's also a very, very important key thing for the listener to take away here, what Teresa just said. Be yourself.
Yeah.
Like a lot of ADHD people, we've always tried to fit ourselves into a square peg hole where we're actually big and round. We try to fit in and change the way we are to sound more. You got all these books and experts saying this is how you're supposed to do stuff. If it doesn't feel right, it's an advice to me. If it works for you, fantastic. If it doesn't, that doesn't work. Be yourself is key. I know I've had a lot more success being myself than trying to fit a mold or pretend to be
Yeah.
someone I'm not. And I think that's very important. Just be yourself. I think you're more comfortable, and I think you have more, it's easier to have more of a conversation
Yeah.
with a group or one-on-one. So I think
So you
that's
frame
powerful.
it different. You frame it differently, take some of the pressure off.
Right.
And and we all have to learn how to be good conversationalists too. So
Yes.
so
Yeah.
there are important rules to being a good conversationalist too.
Right.
The number one rule being a conversationalist doesn't have the whole conversation be about themselves and somebody
Yeah.
talking about themselves because that's not a good conversation.
Yeah.
So so the conversation is again that reciprocity. You say something and somebody else gets some value out of it, whether it gives them some insights or they enjoy it, it's fun, it's lively, whatever that
Mhm.
is. There's value for both parties in the conversation.
So if you want to talk to me in front of a group, the reciprocal of that is they're getting information that they're looking for, some insights or ahas. But for me, what I'm getting about is I can get to share my information, my
Yeah.
knowledge, my enjoyment of being in front of a crowd,
Yeah,
not my
you get to
sale.
contribute.
Right, right. So that to me, that's a different way of thinking also than rather being transactional. If I talk to you, you're going to come
Right.
buy from me after. And I think
Right.
everyone can sense that or smell that during a presentation, I believe.
Right. And that's where, back to what you brought up at the beginning, where at the end, when you've got your call to action or your ask or
Right.
whatever it is you don't change that frame of mind. Is like, that's why and I know I gave you the language to lead yourself into that, is if what you've heard makes sense to you or is of interest, or you think that this would be valuable in your life, here's how you proceed.
Right.
These are the next steps. And it's entirely about them. It keeps the relationship, it honors the relationship in that way because it is in their court. They do get to say yes or no to you. And it honors that dynamic by saying, I've laid out my thinking. I've laid out why I think that it's appropriate for you to take these next actions. I've built this case. Now it's up to you. I can't force you. I can't manipulate you. I can't, jam it down your throat. I
Mhm.
can't do all of, I mean, I can try, But ultimately, it's up to that person to make the decision of whether or not they want to take that course of action. And you've made the case,
Yeah.
and now you lay it out for them. Here's how you proceed if you're interested.
So what you're doing also is you're giving them ownership to make up their own decision with no pressure and respecting their intelligence, that they can make a logical decision rather than giving them an ultimatum, yes or no. I
Yeah,
think
you know what? Beautifully said, Andre. That's the perfect way of saying it.
you can use that quote too for
Okay,
as an
I'm
example.
going to do that.
We all share. So what would be the biggest misconception of communication if the fundamental aspect is not about you?
Well, I guess the misconception is a lot of the things that we just spoke
Right.
about is that in order, you know, let me step back a second. No matter communication is another way of using the word selling. We're all selling something. We're selling an idea, we're selling a point of view, we're selling, we might be selling a product or a service. We're selling something. There's something that we are intent upon somebody else agreeing with us in. And the misconception is that whatever it is that we're selling, that idea, that course of action, that product or service, whatever it is, that it's about that.
Right.
That it's about the product, or it's about the service, it's about the idea. And the misconception is that that's what it's about, and that's not what it's about. It's about being attentive to other people and supporting them on having what it is that they want.
Mhm.
That's what it's about. And helping them overcome problems that they've got, to be able to accomplish aspirations that are important to them, to have a life that they want to have, whatever that is. That's where the focus is. It's really not on the things that we think it is. We're putting our attention on the wrong things.
Okay, so right now we have said a lot of things, a lot of different processes, a lot of concepts to put into play. But how can I put all this into perspective so I can plan a presentation or a sales pitch, whatever, or what have you? Is there a way to put it all together easily?
Well, the easiest way is to be part of one of our courses that where we teach the methodology of
Mhm.
step by step by step, just like you went through. Here's step by step by step how you go about doing that in a way that provides you with the support and as I said, the methodology to have your focus be on the right things and in the right place so that you can accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. And that's a big, as you know, the big piece of it is I created a tool many years ago called the Power to Connect. And it's I mean, I love this tool. I mean, aside
Good.
from pride of ownership and authorship, I love this because of what it enables people to do. And it gets, especially like for somebody who's ADD and is highly distractible, and that's the world also, but it's
Yeah.
not just ADD. That's got some additional layers of it. But for all of us that are in such a highly distractible world, what it does is it forces really, or it funnels you into focusing on the right things and then using it really as a visualization tool to have the success. So you can see the success, you can see the outcome that you want
Yep.
by going through the thinking process. It becomes a strategic document for your communication.
Yeah. What I
And
really liked about it was very simple. One,
yes,
it kept a structure on the thought process. Yes, it keeps your focus, but as I prepare my presentation, it's a nice thing to keep on to side to know if I'm staying on track.
Exactly, exactly. It's like, oh, okay, I veered off and
Hmm.
I got distracted and I said I was going to focus on this and then I went off track over here.
Yeah.
So not good, not bad, either one. It's what you can then go is like, I went off. Is that a better idea? And is that a better thing to incorporate? So I've got to make the adjustments first in my strategy
Right.
because I came up with a better idea. That's valid.
Or you might lead it to confusion,
Or it
a
might lead you
confusing
to.
confusing message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it allows for you to do, a check-in point with it too. Does it
Yeah.
match? Are they aligned? If they're not aligned, do I change the strategy, the power to connect and what I
Hmm.
said there, or do I change my communication? So you have a nice checkpoint to go and balance things off. And I'm really happy that's how you're using that.
Yeah, and I gotta use it more often, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's definitely an easy tool. It's called Encore Communication Program. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have a link in the show notes to this. I highly recommend people to look at it. I don't often recommend programs unless I'm really sold on it, and I'm not getting any financial restitution or whatever from Teresa. This is highly recommended. It's a very simplified way to get focus on what you want to say and to who is important. I think my experience is I always lost who I was speaking to.
Yeah.
And I think it really turned, it was trying to talk to me. It was about me.
Yeah.
Um,
And Andre, you're not alone in that.
no.
That's that's the state of human beings.
Mhm.
That's we all have trouble. I mean, I have trouble. I do this for a living, and I have to be very mindful and self-managed around that.
It's
Um,
just like ADHD. Everything's got to be managed for it to be
yes.
effective. And if you let it run too much, or if like, if you, yes, you're an expert on communication, but if you let that go to your head, then you're not being a very good communicator.
Then I stop learning.
Right,
I've got
right.
I keep finding more and more things to learn.
And that's my mantra here: never stop learning, because
Yeah.
the more we grow, we got more opportunities to improve ourselves. And as we grow and fix things, other things pop over because now we can see them because we got the bigger stuff. That's always been my mantra,
Exactly.
and that's one of the things I respect you as a coach. And on this program that you had, is there's always continual growth and understanding.
Yeah.
What is one thing someone can do today to improve their communication? Just one little thing.
Well, this is not a popular answer, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that is to prepare. That's the one thing that when it's important, when it's something that counts, that it's going to make a difference, make sure that you commit the time to think it through and prepare in advance. And people don't do it.
And I think for the ADHD brain is, and you're not recommending scripting it out 100% and read from cue
Now,
cards. It's just putting some thoughts together so you got a general idea. Like we did today, I created a fast filter for this. Did we stick to it 100%? Nope. But it gave us a direction and and an end result, like an end destination to get to, but we're able to stay focused on that.
yeah.
Um,
And also for somebody an ADHD brain, an ADD brain, the other thing is you can break things down into small components. Like
yes, very
that's
much so.
that's it doesn't mean that I've got to sit down and stay there until it's done
Mhm.
because that can be overwhelming and
Causes procrastination in that case.
yeah, and it's just like, oh, I can't do it. But if you
Yeah.
break it down into small segments and that whether it's and your level of distractibility, so you
Yeah.
can gauge from that. So if it's 10 minutes or it's in half an hour, whatever it is, that you commit that time, and whatever happens during that period of time is good. And then the next part, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to look at the next one. And that was a technique that I was taught with my son,
Mm.
and this will be familiar not only for everybody who's ADD, but parents of kids is
Mhm.
like dinner time was a nightmare every night. It was because wouldn't sit down from the beginning to the end of dinner. So we broke it into segments like, okay, you've got 10 minutes, you're going to sit down, then you can get up, walk around, run around, do
Right.
whatever for 2 minutes, then you come back.
Yeah. And my
And
daughter,
10,
we get her a bouncy ball that she can sit at the table. Yeah.
but you know, you work
Yeah.
with recognizing here's how I think, this is how I work. So break it down into those segments, but don't avoid the preparation.
Right. So just to go on more on that, like what Teresa's also saying, it's like to chunk it down to better if it's a long lead time. Like if you got a few weeks to do this, the only way we can get started is by chunking it down to smaller pieces on a set
Yeah.
time, because now we got a smaller deadline. But if we got to do this presentation 2 days, we can do a 4, 5, 6 hour sit down to do it. But now we're getting last minute, the urgency's up, but at the same time, that won't be our best work. So I think that's
Yeah.
a fantastic thing for like to bring up. The longer the lead time for preparation, break it down. Who do I want to talk to? 10-minute brainstorm. A few days later, it can be one of my main 3 points, and just keep it up as an open document. So
Yep.
very great point. I'm glad you brought that up. 3 things out of this I got. Remember, it's not about me. It's about the audience. And great communication is connection to the person, and it has to be reciprocal. And then the communication with this person, but also includes a crowd. And the one thing just to do today to improve your communication is just to prepare.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
can you just give us a little brief intro to your company, Connect to the Core? Because I think it is an important thing to share to our listeners.
Yes. Well, thank you for asking about that. The my company, we're a communications company, and really, if I'm to bottom line it, what we do is we work with organizations and we work with individuals to guide them on how they can get other people to do what they want them to do. I mean, that's really the bottom line of it, because that's what communication is that our intention is to persuade or to influence or motivate others to buy our products, do what we want, do what we've
Mhm.
asked them to do, agree with our point of view, whatever it is. But so that's what we do. We coach individuals and organizations on how to get others to do what you want them to do through messaging, through your personal individual presentation, communication skills, through making sure that everybody's on the same page with your strategic planning, all of those things. So
Mhm. And one thing I got to say though is you and your team, it's not about you. It is about your clients. And that's the one thing I really
thank you.
got an appreciation for. Um, Man, we can talk about this a lot longer, but we're running out of time here. So I just want to thank the listeners again for gifting me your time and for thinking about us and listening again. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe to the podcast. And if what you heard is beneficial to someone else, please share this episode, share it with 2 or 3 friends, or more the merrier. And you can also give me a rating and comments. And I also want to hear from you. What was the biggest key takeaway you got from Teresa today? And you can send it to me at questions@theimpulsivethinker.com or at the website. Teresa, thank you so much for
Oh,
communicating what you communicate best. It's communication, and I appreciate your time.
thank you, Andre. It was my pleasure. Absolutely.
And to you, the listener, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.